Hello everybody, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Peter Bro, Professor of Journalism at the University of Southern Denmark and also internationally known scholar in the field of constructive journalism. He recently published his book, monograph, Constructive Journalism, Precedents, Principles and Practices. Just like in his book, today we'll talk about some constructive journalism. So first of all, Peter, I would like to start with one hypothetical situation. Let's imagine I'm a young journalist who just finished college. And today is my first day at work. And my feelings are mixed, like anxiety and excitement, because I'm overthinking, will I do the good job, will I ask the right questions? And can you give me some advice, how should I be a good journalist?
First of all, you should go find a cup of coffee to relax. And then I think about the people you know yourself, young people, think about what kind of stories they might have an interest in and what might inspire them. And then I'm sure you would come up with a news story, and you would perhaps also find some news sources relatively quickly, and then you will produce your news story, and then you'll have a great day. And probably also haven't been drinking a couple of coffee during the day.
Thank you. And we often play with the term of constructive journalism, but what is it really? Can you give us some concrete examples?
Yeah. So basically, constructive journalism means that you report on something not only as a problem, but also as something that might have a solution. So it's about inspiration. Typical constructive journalism stories could be stories about climate. How can we make a better climate? What can you do in kindergarten for the people who work there? What can you do at hospitals, schools? Could be about health, mental health. Is there inspiration to be found in other cities and other countries on how you battle some of the health issues we have? So it's really about drawing on inspirations and solutions from other countries, other cities, neighboring areas.
From your words, constructive journalism really seems like some ideal that we should strive for. But should we really, as a society, is it a necessity, constructive journalism, for us as a society? Not only in Denmark and in Croatia, for example, but in general society?
Yeah. Well, I think for many years we've had what we call traditional journalism that has a focus on problems. And what we experience these years is that more and more people are turning away from the news media. So we have what we call news avoidance. People avoid the news. More and more people do that both in Denmark, especially in Croatia. So I think we need to do something, those of us who work with journalism as teachers, researchers and practitioners, to be able to draw in more people so that they discover the importance of journalism. And if we don't do something, I fear that more and more people go into filter bubbles. They only talk with their friends, their family, and they stay out of politics, and then democracy is faltering. So I think there's a lot of stake here.
Yeah. And with your extensive experience through whole Europe, how is constructive journalism developing in Europe? And which countries are leading the way? Which countries set the example?
Yeah. So we're talking about, from a researcher's point of view, that constructive journalism, or some of the concepts that is closely related to constructive journalism, like solutions journalism, is basically spreading out all over the world. Solutions journalism is primarily a concept used in the US, North America, and in countries like England and so forth. Constructive journalism is a term that is more used in Europe, I would say, and in Asia and Australia and so forth. Now coming from Denmark, I kind of hate to say this, but Denmark has been one of the countries where we started inventing the concept of constructive journalism. So there's a lot of interest in constructive journalism in Denmark and in our neighboring countries, Sweden and Norway. So when we meet globally for conferences and so forth, like we did today, the Nordic countries often have good examples of constructive journalism because we do that quite a lot. But I mean, it's found in many different countries by now.
I mean, you should be proud of yourself for setting the example for other countries.
Thank you.
And where does Croatia stand on that map exactly?
Since we're here today in Zagreb, it's because there's a huge conference about constructive journalism. So my feeling is that there's a lot of interest in it, in the concept, and I think a lot of the journalism education system is ready to try it out. And I can also tell for some of the people I've met with that news organizations are all for trying it out also. And we have a panel earlier today where you could tell that there are actually Croatian journalists and editors who've done something that resembles constructive journalism without even knowing the concept. And I mean, that's all fine, because the concept in itself might not be important. The journalism is important. So if somebody's already doing it, that's just fine. And maybe that can inspire more people. And that's what we're hoping for with this conference, that more people in Croatia, both journalists and people in the news industry, but perhaps also audiences, will know what constructive journalism is, because then the audience can also ask for it and say, well, we want to have media that does this. So I think that's important also.
Yeah. You mentioned Denmark, your country, and Croatia, and I think we can both agree there are some significant differences in journalism in those countries, because here in Croatia we often fight as a journalist against politicization, marginalization, polarization of media. How can we as journalists fight that, and how can we just do a better job and avoid those kind of things?
Yeah. So I think there are two things. There's the thinking, and then there's the techniques. And if you realize that you have a problem with polarization, say in Croatia, if that's the case, then there's some basic techniques you can actually use from constructive journalism about how to bring people together and have them talk better among each other, and perhaps have more focus on solutions and so forth. So, but the thinking, the mindset is something that is needed, and I think you're right that it's not only journalists, it's also something that the politicians should have a look at, because in order to have a good public debate, you of course also need the politicians to chip in, and you need the CEOs of the companies. So culture is of course important, but constructive journalism has spread also to other countries where you have some of the same issues. So I don't think that will be a hindrance in the long run if you really want to try it out.
And you also mentioned audience, like which is a big factor in journalism in general. And should the audience and the society in general be more educated, or should we as a media professionals make more content which makes them read, listen, watch things differently and critically think more?
Yeah. So I think the news media industry in itself can do quite a lot by trying out new things like constructive journalism, but I also think that other institutions in our society need to do something. So in my home country, Denmark, we talk quite a lot about the school system has a responsibility to give what we call media competences or journalistic competences to students. So they know what journalism is, they know what the media is, they know how to reflect and discuss about the importance of democracy. And if you don't have that kind of education, you might not know what good journalism is and what good media is and why they're important. So journalists and editors and owners of news organizations can only do so much. They can still do a lot, but we also need other institutions in society to raise up journalistic content and show what it can and what it can't do. So that's important also.
Now my next question is like classical egg or chicken dilemma.
Yes.
Because we usually tend to debate on our faculty. Like, who is the problem? Is the problem the media who produces negative news, clickbaits, etc.?
Yeah.
Or is the problem the audience which usually consumes most of the content like in this way, like negative, full of sensationalism and everything else?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And as the saying goes, I mean, it probably has to start both places, but I think that the one that can really change things are the news media. And I think the news media has to realize that, of course, clickbaits in the short term can generate some more clicks and some more eyeballs, as we might call it. But in the longer run, if you need people to subscribe to newspapers, you need to do more than offer them clickbait, because everybody's offering clickbait. So you need to find a way to draw in your audiences. And in Denmark, we talk a lot about conversions. Some news content is good at making readers who just go to a website also convert into subscribers where they actually pay for it. And that's not clickbait that generates conversions. When we do research and look at what kind of news stories that generates conversions, that really means you get a paying audience rather than just having people sneak peeking. These are different kinds of stories. These are not stories about horrors or traffic accidents or whatever. These are stories that oftentimes have a more solutions perspective or constructive perspective or nuances or depolarizations. And I think that's because of our readers and our listeners and our viewers. They can tell that this is something that has been more demanding to make, so they're more eager and willing to pay for it actually. So I think although we will probably for a long time have clickbaits, we should also start building the other thing, and perhaps at best you can bridge the two and have both. But I think in the long run you need the solutions and journalism, constructive journalism, if you want to have subscribers that are still paying and spending time and spending money for serious media.
I mean, that really sounds like an ideal scenario, but often in reality is often disappointing.
Yeah.
For example, here in Croatia we have like a long-running conflict between the Prime Minister and the President of the country.
Okay.
And how can we as a journalist constructively report on that, like to avoid sensations, clickbait, scandals, and just like negative news on that topic?
Yeah. And that sounds like a really difficult situation, because if politicians don't want to talk to each other or always are fighting, then you have a problem, of course. But maybe it's not knowing enough about Croatia. Maybe it's possible to create a different environment for how to talk. We've tried that a little bit in my neighborhood where my university is based. So the regional TV station, they actually built a room where the walls could move, and then they put politicians into the room, and they said, well, you have to, in order, the walls will be moving as time goes by. So every minute they did like this. So eventually they would be cornered in if they didn't find solutions to various things. And it turned out when the politicians could tell, well, the walls are coming closer, they actually started finding each other and trying to find a better type of conversation. So, and I mean, that's just one trick, but you could do other things in order to try to have the politicians, if they are willing to meet in the same room. Of course, if they are unwilling to meet, there's only so much you can do as a journalist, right? Yeah,
that's a problem here in Croatia, because we come back to the audience. And the audience, if I as a journalist make some type of a report on this conflict that is more objective, without some sensations, without a clickbait, without something powerful, which he said, like, for example, idiot or something to each other, my content will get less views and less attention from the audience. And that circles back to that, let's say, infinite loop where we just like running after each other, audience and the media.
But I think, yes, we have to have somebody break the circle that you're talking about, and I think that has to be journalists and the news media, because we have responsibility. I try to tell my students back home in Denmark often that you have a bunch of professions and organizations that are working for narrow interest. A company that wants to sell more products, or organizations that are trying to do something, but one of the few professions that are actually working for the general public is journalism. We work for the public, so we have a special responsibility for engaging the public, and even though the public at times might do clickbaits and everything else, we have to do something to draw the public into democracy and have them be part of a public conversation. So it falls on us to do something, I believe.
Yeah, and my next question is actually about the Gen Z. And how can we connect Gen Z with constructive journalism? Because constructive journalism requires a lot of attention, let's say, and today Gen Z and younger audiences have like really short attention span. What is the solution here?
So I think we need young people to produce journalism. So rather than having people who are 50 or 60 or even older produce journalism, we need to have somebody who knows the formats, who are able and willing, perhaps yourself, to produce shorter formats that is capturing younger audiences. So, and I think for many years we've left it to the older people to decide what journalism should be about. Maybe it's time for new young generations of journalists and editors to come up with new narratives, new ways of storytelling that is more engaging. And I think we shouldn't shy away from using social media either to draw in people, but use it on journalistic terms. So I hope you have a brilliant career ahead of you, so you can do some of this stuff. That's important.
Thank you. And for the last question, let's end the interview on some positive note. What is your message for all the journalists that are fighting for constructive journalism and to to make journalism better in general?
I think they are part of a very, very important experiment, not only for themselves and their own future in terms of getting jobs, but also for the companies they'll be working for, and even more so for the general democracy. So they are on a very important quest, and I wish them the best of luck.
Thank you, Peter. It was a pleasure having Dr. Peter Bro here, and we'll end this interview near the synonym and the heroine of the Croatian journalism, Marija Jurić-Zagorka. And as Peter said, there's hope for better journalism, and it's on us to make it even better in the future.